Hello, welcome to day 2 of our Greenstyle Creations Lumia Zip-Up Hoodie Sew Along. Today is hopefully going to be a pretty easy day. We're just going to prep all our pieces in ahead of time so that when we need them during the sew, they're already done and ready, and we don't have to worry about anything. We just use them. So today we're going to be making drawstring. This is a working drawstring, so you just want one big piece. You can either have one piece or sew a couple of smaller pieces together, whatever length you prefer. We are also going to be putting rivets in our hood. They just go in the outside piece. So the outside fabric, not the inner fabric. We're also going to be closing up our hemband, adding our pockets, and adding piping to the side center pieces, or the front side center, or the front center pieces, and then the back piece. So let's start with, before we begin, make sure you attach your interfacing to the short ends of your hemband, both sides. You also need to put interfacing on your hood. So you'll need a 2x4 piece along the flat part where it'll attach the head, and then also a square here, which is on my black piece. But okay, so make sure you have your binding attached, or your interfacing attached. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take our drawstring piece, we're going to fold it in half, and we're basically just going to sew it into a big tube, and then we'll turn it and close the ends, or knot them, however you want to do. I'm actually going to close one end now and then sew all the way down. So let's add this camera in. There we go. Okay. So we're going to start with just this, close this little end up. Sorry, I think that's probably pretty loud. All right, so let's turn this down so it doesn't get deafening. Now we're just going to sew along down the end here to the side. The reason why I'm starting and stopping is I'm just making sure that it is folded and the raw edges are together, so that when we sew it shut, they get closed up to. So here you can see they're more towards the side instead of on the end, or in the middle instead of on the side. So we're going to just make sure that those raw edges line up. It's a big piece. The nice thing about making your own drawstring is you can really customize it to the color if you want to use a pattern. And then you can customize the size a lot easier too. Sorry, I forgot to plug this in. I'm going to lose the camera here. Okay. Here we go. Now remember to leave one end open because you'll need it to turn your drawstring inside out or right side out. Okay. Now that that's all sewn together, there's a couple ways that you can turn this. You can get a safety pin and turn it in amongst itself. I have this handy dandy tube turner, which is really quite nice. If you haven't gotten one, I really recommend getting them. They're on Amazon for like $10, and they make the time of turning something like this, they like fraction of the time it takes. Because basically what you do is you just load it onto one end of the tube turner. This is a long one, so it might. You just load it all the way on. It's a pretty tight bit. And there's a lot of fabric to it. Let's see if we can just start turning it now. Probably not. Here, let's try. I don't think so. This might be too long for the tube turner. Yikes. Okay. It's so thin too, though, that I don't think I could even turn it with a bobby pin or a safety pin if I wanted to, which I have horrible luck with those anyways. They always come apart on me. So my tube was pretty big, so I'm not sure it's gonna work the way I want it to. But okay. Yeah, this might be a little too long. For this tube maker anyways. They make different sizes. I guess I never thought I'd be doing something quite this long, so I didn't get a bigger size. Okay, we'll figure that out later. I'm so stubborn. I'm like, no, we'll figure it out now. Okay. We'll come back to that later. Anyways, what we want to do is we want to just flip it around. If I have to try and do it by bobby pin, it's going to take like an hour. So this is just, like I said, it's a pretty long drawstring. I could probably cut it down quite a bit. So we'll see. I'll play around with that. But that's all you do. You just turn it around. You flip it so that your seam is inside. And then you just tie the ends. Or you can put like a aglet on it or anything you want. And then that's your drawstring. It's super easy, super quick. Usually when you're not being stubborn with the tube turner. But next, what we need to do, just make sure I'm following instructions. Okay. So it wants us to finish the edge of the band with a serge stitch or a stitch or a zigzag stitch. So all we did here was just serge one edge of the band. So that's all we need to do to prep the band. Next, let's do the, we'll do this part last. We'll do the rivets last, grommets. So next we need to add piping to our pieces if you're doing that. So we're going to take and find the middle of our back piece, which is right here. We're going to pin or clip that. Okay. And then we're going to take our 27-inch piece and we're going to fold it in half so that the raw edges are touching each other. And then we're just going to find the center of that piece as well, which is right here. And we're going to attach that to the center back, lining up all those raw edges. So your folded edge will be down towards the hem, and we're just lining up the raw edges with the raw edge of the bodice, the back bodice. And believe it or not, I'm going to clip. So we just want to clip it so it's all the way attached. There's quite a few curves. I just want to make sure that it's nice and even and doesn't get twisted or unfolded. So like right down here, got twisted. Let's put one here on this curve. We'll put another clip here. We just really want to make sure this doesn't move on us. We want a nice, even piping. Okay. Same thing on this side. If it overhangs a bit, that's what you want, because it's going to give you a little bit of room for if the fabric slips or slides before you start sewing, so that all of a sudden you don't have a big gap. So it's a nice generous piping. I'm just going through and clipping every couple inches or so when I can see that, okay, it might be pulling or I need it to follow the edge. Just lining it right up with the raw edges. Okay. All right. So now all our raw edges are lined up for our binding, our piping. Okay, so we're just basting this on. So I'm gonna use my serger, but I'm not gonna cut anything. So, you know, it'll have the little bit of the seam and you'll still get a nice bit of the binding or the piping. I keep saying binding. Okay, so let's turn this down and we're just gonna, so right along the edge there, just baste them in. Not trimming anything off, just going right on the edge. But this, if you're using a regular sewing machine, you're just going to want a basting stitch. So if you just do a regular straight stitch, but extend your stitch width, or yeah, stitch width out. Basically what you're just doing is you're just holding the piece in place so that when you attach it to the yoke or the next piece, it doesn't want to go sliding everywhere. So now we're just going to trim off these ends. Okay. So there's our piping piece. And when we attach this to the yoke, you'll just get this little, you'll just see this little tiny flap here. So it'll give it some nice definition without adding anything. So let's do the same thing to the side edges here. This goes on, make sure we're putting in the right one. Yep, so this goes right along here. You've got these marks here for our pocket that I want to make sure I didn't use I didn't cut them out in like little triangles. I just use these little clips. So I need to make sure I remember where that goes. Okay. So just like with the back, I'm going to match these raw edges. I'm probably going to just mark these really quick. Hopefully my pen will show on it. These are nice pens because you can mark on fabric with them, and then as soon as you put heat on it, it disappears. So I really like that for things like this or quilting. I mean, just sewing in general. I'll have to try and remember the name of them. I know Brixton pens do the same thing. Okay. So, well, you can see this. Sorry. Usually I have the video up on the computer so that I can make sure you see what I'm doing, but this one is, this sew has me on my toes, so just making sure I have the instructions up so I'm telling you the right thing. I'm super excited about this. I wasn't sure what fabrics to use, but right before I got cutting, so I cut out a back piece of a different fabric and I was like, no, I'm not feeling this. But I almost was like, well, I already started cutting, I gotta stick with it. But I'm glad I went with my gut because I am loving this buffalo pad with the black. That looks so cool. Right, look at how awesome that looks. Okay, so same thing. We just need to baste this on. So if you're using a serger, just that 1/4 inch, that is going to be the seam from the sewing. If you're using a sewing machine, make sure you're doing a good basting stitch. We're just trying to hold this in place. That's it. So when using a serger, I really prefer using these clips because you don't have to worry about accidentally running over a pin. And if you think, oh, I'll never do that, you will. And then you'll cry because it'll ruin everything. Ask me how I know. Because it'll inevitably happen too, right? When you're working on like a big project that you need to get done as soon as possible. Okay, so there's the binding on this side. Okay, and then let's do it to this other center side. Just gonna again really quick mark those pockets. Well, I'm super excited about this. Sometimes I do a project and I'm just like, ugh, I don't want to do this. Put this on. I'm so excited. I don't know why. There's a huge zipper. And even though, I mean, I've done so many zippers lately, and every time I do them, I'm like, that was easy. What was I stressing about? And crazily, like, funny enough, I'm not super stressing about this zipper. That has me slightly concerned that it's going to be a disaster. But I have read through the instructions a few times, so I think he'll be okay. Which that's a first for me. Usually I'm just like, let's go. Just jump right in. But this I really wanted to make sure I understood exactly what we needed to do. I went and ironed my fabric in half, this piping strip in half, and I really recommend doing that because it has made this process a lot easier. Can't believe I'm actually using clips. Oh, it's crazy. Okay. So same thing, just gonna bind this together. Baste it, sorry. I'm in a quilt headspace, I guess. So now we've got the piping on all the pieces. And we've got our drawstring and our I don't even know what I'm thinking here. Our waistband hemmed at the end of that then. Okay. We'll also need to add interfacing to this middle centerpiece. I do not have enough interfacing at the time or right now. I'm probably going to cut a few pieces and just kind of mod it together. But make sure you add the interfacing to the side of your inner or your front centerpiece, because that's going to be where your zipper goes, and you want to make sure that that's nice and reinforced so that it doesn't stretch or rip or pull when you add the zipper to it. So we're going to add some rivets to the hood, but I'm going to do that last because it's really loud and crazy. But next, what I do want to do is I want to quick add the pockets to this front piece, because I know they have us do it later in the instructions, but I really just want to do it now so that when we do the front, it's not quite as intense. We're just prepping everything now, so we might as well prep these pockets too. So what we're going to do is we're going to lay our pocket piece right sides. Oh, not our pocket piece, I'm sorry. Okay, we're going to take our center panel piece, or center front piece, and lay it right sides up. We're going to take our pocket piece and match it so that right sides are together. Then what we're going to do is we're going to use a sewing machine. So I'll have to grab that out here in just a second. And we're going to just use, so it's a 3/8" seam allowance. So we're just going to sew along this edge here, making sure these raw edges are matched up. So let's grab out the sewing machine. Dun, dun, dun. I know like doing this prep work this way isn't always, I think sometimes people are like, oh, I'd rather just do it as I go. I find that if I do my prep work first, then when I construct everything, it just goes so much faster because I'm not going back and forth between, oh, I've got to prep this now. Okay, now I have to do this. I just construct. So I really like doing prep and then constructing. It just, for me, makes everything go smoother. All right. So we're going to just, like I said, 3/8" stitch or seam allowance. We're going to sew this pocket piece onto the raw edges of our front center, right sides together. Instructions back up because okay. And I put my ironing board away, which was silly. I don't really know why we needed to mark pocket marks on this because it just lines right up with it. So maybe there's another reason that we'll need those later. I don't know. All right. So 3/8". Let's attach these. Goodness, that was going too slow. All right. Now what we need to do. Oops, I thought I cut it, but I did not. Sorry. Is we need to press the seam allowance towards the pocket. So let's first attach this other pocket so that we're just doing the same thing and not reversing around. That's usually when I make mistakes, is when I am jumping back and forth between things. It's just easier if I like do one action and then move to the next action. Because always, inevitably, I'm going to mess something up if I'm going back and forth. So again, just match those raw edges up, right sides together, and then 3/8" seam allowance. We're going to sew this pocket piece on. All right, so now you should have a piece that looks similar to this. Okay, so let's move this out of the way. Well, you should have two pieces that look like that. Let's get this stuff out of the way. I've got this handy wool ironing mat. That's really nice for when I have to just do a quick iron job. Usually I use it mostly for quilting when I'm piecing a quilt together, but all right. And what we need to do is we're just going to open this piece up, and we're going to iron the hem here up towards our pocket piece. This thing can get super hot super fast, so I just need to make sure I'm not going to melt anything. These little irons are great, but they don't adjust to heat the same way regular irons do. They just kind of get hot. All right, so now that we've done that, let's do it with our other piece. Same thing. I'm going to iron this seam up towards the pocket. Okay. Now we're going to understitch the pocket so that it doesn't want to move up or out. We want it to stay inside and not spill everything out of it. So to understitch, what we're going to do is we're going to open this up and then about 1/4 of an inch or 1/8 of an inch away from this seam, right here, the stitching here for this, we're just going to stitch Now what that's going to do is it's going to help keep that stitch, or that seam, towards the back without showing that it's being held down in the front here. So you get a nice clean pocket and it doesn't take away from anything. So this will stay nice and secure in the back and there's not a mark showing that it's there. So I really like that technique. So same thing with this other piece. We're going to open it up. Make sure that that seam, it should already be naturally going towards the pocket because we ironed it down, but just in case you decided not to iron, which I really recommend you do, iron. But okay, and then just 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 inch. You want to get it as close to the stitching as you can. Okay, there we have it. You'll probably want to iron this forward now, this piece on your binding, or I keep calling it a binding, on your piping. But all right, so now our pockets are attached. Our drawstring is made. I still have to flip it out, but it's made. Our piping is attached in case I didn't say that yet. Now what's next is I need to put grommets in my hood. So this is kind of the fun, loud, crazy part. So if you're gonna do this, every time I do it though, something goes wrong. So hopefully that's not the case this time. Just want to check something really quick. Because the thing that I'm like, that keeps getting me about this hood. Well, first of all, I put my what you call it pieces on the liner. So that's wrong. But my interfacing, I should probably put interfacing on this as well. But let's see if we can get it to go. So right here, where is my marking? Okay, here's the marking on this one. So right here is where this grommet goes. So I'm going to take my grommet, my puncher here, and I'm going to hit it with this hammer and hope that it actually punches a hole through this fabric. So I have the worst luck with this thing. I know it's probably because I don't have interfacing on it, but it's starting to punch through. Ooh. If I have the interfacing on like I should. So yeah, you can see it's starting to punch through right there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to take some little snips. Just get a little help here. Because sometimes. Okay, there we go. If my interfacing was on it, which I'm going to regret that it's not on it, if it were on it, it would probably have made that a lot easier. Okay, same thing to the other side. It's a brand new hammer. Pieces of it are coming up. There we go. Perfect. I really recommend using interfacing because it's going to help the fabric not want to stretch when you're pounding on it. That's part of the reason why this one is having so much trouble. But I also recommend using a hammer or some type of tool that's meant to really get it in there, because I've tried other things and they're not the same. So now what we need to do is we need to pick a couple of tops. Get some matching bottom piece. I think it's this one. All right. Now, what we want to do is, give me just 1 second here. Okay. So we're going to take this little handy piece here. We're going to put a disc on it. We're going to put our fabric on it. And we're going to put our rivet on top of that. And actually, that's wrong. Sorry. Okay. I'm going to put our rivet on, fabric on. I can never remember the right way to do these. This should be correct. And then we're going to put this piece in here, and it should close that. So there's the back side of our rivet, and there's the front. Nice. Whew. Okay, same thing. So we're going to put the front of the rivet on. We're going to put the fabric down. And then with this, you want to make sure the lip is going down towards the fabric. You're going to put this over top of the washer and just I might be a little aggressive with it, but there you have it. I've done some rivets where I wasn't aggressive with it and then it popped, like pulled out. So, and that had interfacing on it. So, all right. So that is all of our prep work. So tomorrow now when we go to put our top together, we will be all ready for everything. I'm really excited. We're going to put our front together tomorrow. And then the day after that, we'll be constructing the back and then the zipper the last day, and then we'll have our Lumia. I'm super excited. One note, when you are doing rivets, you want to make sure to have something protecting your surface. I have just this chunk of shelf lying around because I don't know if you can see it or not, but you see those pock marks in that's from the rivet tool, the cutting tool for the fabric. So if you do that on like your cutting table or any other table, it's going to make marks on that. So definitely use something sturdy and strong to protect your surface. Yeah, thank you. I know this is a little long. This is probably going to be kind of tomorrow it's going to be a lot faster, I think, because we're just constructing the front. All this prep work, getting it out of the way today is going to make the other days go a lot faster too. So I will see you tomorrow where we will be constructing the front of our Lumia. Thanks for joining me.